don't know if everyone is fully read in on how we all met and how you all met. So I think I actually first met Jonny, we met in 2008 when Thread was an all-volunteer organization. So we were all volunteer for the first 6 years. And we were both finalists to become Echoing Green Fellows. And that was actually the transition point for Thread bringing on our first paid staff members, was that fellowship. And I remember our first meeting, I was quite nervous because I was giving a 3-minute speech, and I came off the podium and he said, "Great job." I said, "I don't know who this guy is, but he's very encouraging." And then years later, we were introduced by a mutual friend who now happens to be our governor. And we were sitting having brunch, and you walk through the front door, and I thought, who just walks through Wes and Don's front door without knocking? And it was Fagan. And that was our first interaction. And so when I think about like relationships as the first thing in the triad of fulfillment, and how what we've all been able to build together over the years has been due in part to our relationships. And maybe you could just share with everyone how you first met each other, because that predates even our coming together.
It might have been concurrent. I mean,
it's very similar.
Timelines are line up. You want to start? Let me start.
I think first we have to turn these on.
All right.
Hello? Okay.
So Jonny and I got set up on a blind date. That's the truth. I was very involved in student activism in college. I was part of a group called Students Taking on Poverty, and I was very passionate about it. And people started talking on campus, and they were like, "Have you heard Jonny Dorsey's coming back to campus?" And I was like, "Who the hell is Jonny Dorsey?" "Why do I care?" They're like, "Oh, he's amazing." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'm pretty amazing." It's like, "Yeah, but he's like really, really amazing." So I was already like, who is this man? And why is everyone so excited about him?
I made a big mistake not grabbing the mic first.
Just interrupt. Go ahead.
So I said to Ryan before this started, Sarah's amazing husband, Ryan, I was like, Fagan and I need to not either goof around too much up there or just turn this into a praise off up there. So we'll do a little bit of both, but not too much. But I was coming back to campus from being away for 2 years. And I really wanted to do student government because I'm very cool. And I really wanted it to be about something serious. And I met with all the student government folks. And it was not going that well. And then our friend Debbie set us up, and we talked all through the night about what we cared about and why, and what we wanted to do. And it's funny, Sarah, we got a list of many potential questions to discuss, and she talked about best jobs you ever had. And honestly, student government, we just did real government together. Student government was an amazing experience in time. So I met Fagan through that, through him being someone who is serious about fighting poverty and seriously believed also in the power of our classmates, of young people, to do powerful service on that community and more broadly in the world. So that's how we met. I'm cutting the praise part short. I'm being disciplined. I know we have time here. Fagan and I did an alumni thing for our college, and we spent half the time praising each other. So that, we're not going to do that today. We're not going to goof around. And I'll just say, like, I sat down, and the first feeling I had, Sarah, was not I'm excited to goof around, but like I felt emotional for a second, because it is wild that we've all been doing this work for almost 20 years together. And we've made lots of mistakes. It hasn't all gone perfectly. We can, but we have shared, I think, a set of beliefs that is shared with many of you here today. And I think we've been able to do some good things together because of that.
One thing I would add is the reason he was gone for a couple of years and had to return is he dropped out to start a group called Face AIDS, which was the largest student organizing effort in the country around addressing HIV/AIDS. And I had never met a social entrepreneur before. So Jonny was like the first person I'd ever met who was like a quote social entrepreneur, someone who like built a company with a social movement at its core. And that was such an illustrative and powerful thing for me, because obviously I went on to spend more than a decade of my life building a social enterprise, and he was very much the template. And yet we did talk through the night, and when I met him, I was like, oh, I get it. I see why he's so great. So, but yeah, when I first heard about you, I was a little like,
So it's interesting how a conversation you can have when you're 18 years old can impact the trajectory of your life in a really formative way, and then have a ripple effect for so many others. Both of you, not just in Baltimore, but across the state of Maryland, and really nationally and internationally. I know that one of the things you share in common is that Jonny, having founded the Global Health Corps, Fagan Baltimore Corps, it's interesting that your next step, if you're just kind of walking us through your professional and personal journey, after being co-class presidents at Stanford, was to not just start organizations, but start organizations that were steeped in service. Was there any sort of like, how were you supporting each other in ideating and building those organizations, or were those entirely separate endeavors?
you know, Jonny has done so much on the service front, and it's kind of staggering actually, because Global Health Corps is like a fellowship model that sends young people to work in public health around the world. So these are young people who work in some really tough conditions and climates. And when he was building that, I was very much in like student mode and learning mode, and just kind of watching him build it and seeing the like trials and tribulations of that. And fast forward when I was doing Baltimore Corps, I mean, he was basically a third co-founder. I mean, he helped us get our first major gift. He was instrumental in the model. I have this like memory of writing these early Baltimore Corps docs, because you know when you're like building these things, you just like live in docs, and you have like version 1, 2, 3, 4, 21, 31, 41, like you're just iterating constantly. And I could not get my prepositions right. This is like a very specific memory, but I remember Jonny being like, dude, you're building the Baltimore Corps in Baltimore City. He was like, there's like a comment in one of the Word docs. So he was that involved in helping us get it together, to the point where he was cleaning up my grammar. So I would say with Global Health Corps, I was more observing him and learning. And Baltimore Corps, I think we worked very closely together to get it built. And you know, and it's like anything else. I'm sure you have this with Thread. You need people who can keep you in the work, because like you're gonna have days where you're just like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like this is just too hard. Like Thread definitely helped us make payroll in the early days at Baltimore Corps, and like saved our bacon when it all could have fallen apart. So I have so many moments like that in that journey early on, where you're just hanging on by a shoestring, and so many incredible and lovely people, many of whom are in this room, have helped sustain the commitment. And so for me, Jonny's at the top of that list on that. Yeah.
I said we wouldn't end in praising each other all the time, but Fagan is at the top of my list. And I think this relates to your 3 points in a way, Sarah, is that as I was listening to that, I was like, those are not 3 separate things. Those are all the same things. When you do them right, at least. They're all the same things. And I think we were leaning on each other a lot, building these ventures up to now, like
Yeah.
just now. I was talking to Fagan about something going well and something going hard at work. We still do that, but also, like the day my mom got a bad health diagnosis, he was in my living room. And it's service, purpose, and relationships. And as you have modeled so much better and spoken about so much more eloquently than anyone else, Sarah, like you have to build the real human relationships as well. And that is how you do the really hard work too. And you don't do it just for an instrumental reason to do the hard work, obviously, but it is in those relationships that the hardest work can happen. And
That's well said.
I'm just really, Fagan's been my person in that way too.
Just me.
Having walked alongside both of you for a long time and kind of seen how things have evolved and how you've grown and changed together, it's been extraordinary. And I think you're right. It's that intersection between relationships, purpose, and service that it works together when it's really working. I want to take a minute and see if we can go a little bit deeper into purpose itself. Years ago, purpose, let's just talk about that for a second. Purpose is something that is a desire of all humans, right? It is actually innate to the human condition. It is biologically hardwired for all of us. It is something that we all share in common. Meaning, when you feel connected to purpose and meaning, we actually get more dopamine. We have more serotonin. Our cortisol goes down. So there is a physical, mental, emotional reaction that we have as humans to being connected to a purpose. We want to help. We want to matter. And it is something that we all share in common. And so when we think about how do you find your purpose? What does that mean? And for people who are, again, sometimes we talk about surviving and thriving, but it's the question we ask in our community is, what would we want for ourselves? And what would I want for my daughter Evie? Because that's what we want for all of the people inside of our community. And what I want for Evie is not just that she can eventually move out of our house. That is one box I'd like to check. But I want her to feel alive, and I want her to have joy. And to your point, I think that when you are connected to your purpose, there's a level of endurance that comes from that, where you are able, I like to say, eating glass. You can eat glass more effectively when you're connected to your purpose, because there's a reason that you're eating glass. Truly, there's a reason for the struggle, and the struggle becomes beautiful in that you're connected to that deeper purpose. So we've done a lot of work around how do we ourselves find our purpose, and so distilling it down into three very simple components. That purpose can be found at the intersection of your skills. So what is the thing that you're uniquely great at? Each of us in this room has something that we are better at than the rest of the room. But do you know what that thing is that you are uniquely skilled at? And are you able to spend time leaning into that and further building out that skill set? The second is what are you passionate about? What is the thing that lights you up? That when you're doing it, it doesn't matter if you've slept 3 hours or 10, you just leave feeling so good and energized. And then it's when you figure out how to connect your skills and your passion to a need. That is where your purpose lies, being able to meet a need, leveraging what you love and what you're great at. So when we think about skills, I know Malcolm Gladwell had a hypothesis that's been hotly debated over many years, this idea that during your childhood, if you get 10,000 hours of very focused, deliberate practice on a particular thing, that you basically have a strategic advantage in having built that skill. And we have a working hypothesis inside of our community that every single one of us actually had 10,000 hours in our childhood at something. Whether it was named and explicit, we had deliberate training in something that then, if we really uncover that and continue to lean into it, can build on that, and that's really where our superpower lies. So I'm super curious if we go back, and I think about, we're all parents now, so we're thinking about this in a very active way. like, what do you think potentially your 10,000 hours as a child, like, where did that exist for the two of you?
So I was a newspaper boy. I did it for 7 years. And it was definitely the most like formative experience in my childhood. So 2 days a week for 7 years, I was up at 4 and would put the papers together. This is the Capital Gazette and the Baltimore Sun. And deliver them across 3 routes, so probably 150 papers. And I got to know all of those people. And 2 of my routes were in like very low income neighborhoods. And I actually think one was a housing project. And so I distinctly remember you had to go collect the money every month. So like once a month you'd show up and be like, hey, I'm here with the Maryland Gazette or the Baltimore Sun, $3 for the paper you've been getting, like gotta collect. And I remember this woman, I must have been like 11 years old. She like opened the door and I was like, I'm here for the $3. And she was like, come in.
Can't hear you.
So that she opened the door and she asked me to come in. And then she showed me to her kitchen, which was like just a short walk from the front door. And she said, what do you see? And I instantly thought like, uh-oh, I've like interrupted dinner by, doing my collections after school. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, I've interrupted dinner. She's like, no, like, what do you see? And I'm like, looking across the table and there's like 4 kids and none of them have any clothes on. And they're all looking at these plates and there's like slices of bologna. Remember like the bologna packets would have like the little rubber rim? So it's like each one had like 1 slice of bologna, and then the kids were all sitting there with like forks and knives, like cutting the bologna. And I was like, you're eating bologna for dinner? She said, exactly. And do you think I have 3 papers for the paper? $3 for the paper? And I was like, no, you don't. I got it. Cool. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna keep giving you the paper, and we're gonna keep it moving. And so I spent a lot of time getting to know people. So just 150 households, being in their lives, you see domestic violence, you see poverty, you see beautiful things, hard things. I built a relationship. I don't think I've ever told this story. I had an elderly woman on my route, and she was very lonely. And she used to like make me watch Kojak with her. So like I would like show up to like collect, and she was like, yeah, we'll get to the $3 in a minute. Have you seen Kojak? And I would just be sitting there for hours, man, watching Kojak. But it actually like took a pretty dark turn because like I took 1 week off from delivering papers in the 7 years. My family took a vacation. I was 14 at this point, so we took a summer vacation. So I took 1 week off, not delivering the papers. And I came back and she had killed herself. No. I swear to God. And they used to print out like the comments. You used to get the comments from your route. And I took a lot of pride in this. I always took pride in getting positive comments. But the week I was out, the substitute newspaper person basically just like didn't deliver the paper. He was like throwing it on the roof. He was throwing it in the gutter. Like people were just pissed. So I was getting all these negative comments. And her comments just escalated, because like she had gotten so accustomed to that relationship. And I would see her in the morning delivering the paper. So like, I'm not saying that was the cause. I think she was a very unwell person. But the point is like that gave me a proximity to people and their challenges that was very shaping for me. And so I think to answer your question, to this day, I have to like manage my empathy because I meet people and I can like see and feel them. And I think it comes from just like a lot of repetitions. I'm sure there's some other stuff that I can talk about in therapy, but if I had a superpower, it's probably that. And I think it was forged in that experience. And I'm forever grateful for it because it changed my whole life. Like so many good things came from that route. Like seriously, here's like, and I'll wrap up, but like, so I was Paperboy of the Year in 1997. And so I was so damn proud. And they put me on the front page of the paper, by the way. Not above the fold, but below the fold, front page. I had like a little trophy and I was just like, this is the greatest thing. It was so validating and affirming. Anyway, so I meet the editor of the paper and meet him at this thing. Fast forward years later, my mom's at the grocery store and I'm 16 now, still delivering the damn paper. But my mom's at the grocery store and she runs into the editor. And she's like, aren't you the editor of the paper? He's like, yeah. And he's like, my son, paper with you. She's like, oh, he's like, I remember him. He was great. And he was like, she's like, how are you doing? He's like, man, I'm okay. I need a columnist for the Sun papers from like a student perspective, like a teenage columnist. I'm going through all the submissions. I don't like any of them. And my mom, being like advocate number one, she was like, oh, my son can do it. He was born to do it. Did you know he wants to be a writer? I did not want to be a writer. She was like, he's fantastic. So she comes home and she's like, you have to do this thing. And I was like, I don't want to do all that. She's like, you got to do it. So I do it. Anyway, get the gig. Later, when I applied to Stanford, I ran into my admissions officer, and he was like, oh yeah, the paper thing got you in here. Yeah. So that whole journey was like super impactful for me. Yeah, anyway.
So many lessons there, including your mom always knew best.
100%.
So skills, your 10,000 hours, Johnny.
Can I take a pass after Fagan's? half joking. I've never thought about this, and I don't know that I've got a killer one. I will say it's not a skill, but I think Fagan and I, one of the things we bonded about is that we are both mama's boys, and I was a very shy, quiet kid, and I spent tons of time with my mother, tons, growing up, and it's not a skill set, but I think sorry guys, I'm a crier. Mom's crying. I think I do feel like I got an incredible example of just being loved well by someone. And I don't think I always live up to her and how I love others in my life, but I think that really was like the thing that she gave me incredibly. And I had a very lucky childhood. It took till later that I was exposed to suffering and grief, my own challenges of others. I had a decade of basically just my mom's love being like center of so much for me. And that shaped a lot how I tried to live. And I think it shaped the degree to which I felt broken by how suffering of others, to be honest, and the sense of around purpose stuff, there's not really a choice of not working on suffering when you have felt the joy of that kind of love in your life.
Self-confidence.
I think it's easy to keep moving. And so Johnny, I don't think you're the only one who maybe hasn't thought about the 10,000 hours, because it's so easy to keep moving, surviving, getting to thriving. But there's something about how we were all shaped earlier that is grounding. And so just even having the luxury of pausing in this moment to think about it together is a gift. In the same vein, if you think about what you're passionate about, can you think of an example of, so moving from skills to passion, something that when you were 8, so they say that there's this special thing about the age of 8, that things that happened when you were 8 or things you did when you were 8 uniquely impact how you show up in adulthood. And so I'm curious, what lit you up when you were 8? Describe for me 8-year-old Johnny, 8-year-old Fagan.
I wanted to be a National Geographic photographer from 6 to 16, so that's the real, that lit me up quite a bit. But when you said 8, I had this weird flash, and much as I just said, for the decade I didn't have any exposure to suffering. When I was 8, my next door neighbor, Wally, had HIV, and that would have been in '93. And Wally didn't want me to see him deteriorating. Jeez, I'm gonna cry for everyone.
It's okay.
Ask me something like, "What's your favorite color?" Turquoise. So I would stand against this ivy covered gate thing that was probably not that tall, but when I was 8, it did the trick. And talked to Wally, not every day, but talked to him, and he deteriorated and he passed away. And I don't know if that's why I ended up working on HIV, but again, I could talk to a therapist, probably. Definitely that experience of, and the loneliness of it. He had folks visiting him who he was comfortable having seen him, but it was hard knowing that this man was sort of alone on the other side of the fence going through this.
I mean, not having known that and seeing what you built with Face AIDS, it's just extraordinary to now see the connection between the two.
I mean, I was a little hustler. I mean, I hate to return back to the paper thing, but I think 8-year-old Fagan was like, I wanted to build things, and I wanted to make a little bit of money, and I wanted to be of use to people. And so I was a little entrepreneur. So one of the things I did, I flipped my paper route into a landscaping and handyman service called Odd Jobs. So I incorporated this little business. I did all the paperwork, called it Odd Jobs Inc. My logo, you guys remember Dr. No, James Bond, Odd Job, this guy? That was my logo, was that guy, because I thought that was so cool. And it was an early exercise in vertical integration, because the paper customers were also the the handy customers, the landscaping customers. I was hitting the same doors, man, 2, 3, 4 times a week. I was also a latchkey kid. So I walked to and from school from the 1st grade to the 12th grade. So I kind of had to get both my parents worked at night. So I had a younger brother. I always had to cook dinner and get him organized and do homework and get him dressed. And so I was extremely independent. And I was extremely kind of industrious, and I don't know, it's kind of shocking, when I think about where those routes were. I mean, that's a 3-mile radius that I was just transversing as a 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old by myself in the world. So just imagine a kid out here roaming. That's why I have a lot of heart for the squeegee kids and stuff. When people go off on that, it pisses me off. I'm yo, these kids are just trying to eat, and they are comfortable in this world, and just because you're not doesn't mean they're not, and that doesn't mean that's a problem. And obviously we got to talk about boundaries and respect. It's not about giving people a blank check to do whatever they want, but I relate very strongly to that, where you're just all right, I don't like my situation, I'm going to just do something about it. So I don't think my answer is as expansive as Jonny. My world was kind of wide open. I was free range. So I don't know. But I enjoyed that. It was good for me.
So just moving into then present day, in the roles that both of you fill, first of all, I just appreciate you both have accomplished so much. So to be able to take a few steps back and understand what was formative and how you evolved and matured to where you are now is, I think, really helpful for all of us. And I would be curious how you feel that the professional roles you fill now, and even the personal roles you fill, how are you meeting a need that exists that intersects with your skills and what you're passionate about? Just landing on the ground, what does that intersection look like day to day for you now?
There you go.
You go.
I think I'll speak narrowly and specifically about the work we're doing around service, because I think that's most relevant here. I think in addition to being mama's boys, the thing we bonded about was this belief that we could both go do good work. We're confident guys. We could do good work. And if we brought other people into the work, we could do more. You get one more person who's as good as you, and ideally has different skills than you, like you can do twice as much good. Bring two more, 3 times as much good. And that sort of general theory of if you want to solve big problems, you've got to bring more people into the work. Like, I believe, and we believe at work, that service does 3 different fundamental things. Like, it helps connect young people to opportunity. It helps build bonds across difference, especially in this moment. And also it helps solve big problems. And it was that third one that honestly was the one that motivated me early, was the belief that, like, oh wow, like we can solve way more big problems if we find more ways to ask and empower more people to serve. And the way it felt at Stanford was we've got a major talent misallocation problem. And like Jane Stanford, when she wrote the mission of the school, was pretty clear. This is to train people to go solve big problems. And that's not what's happening, and that's bad for the world. We should work on that. And then Global Health Corps was fundamentally for me about like, there are all these young people who are so on fire about the injustice of lack of access to health who want to do this work, but it's impossible to get that first step in. And like my best moment was seeing a hospital built by many people, but including these young people who had that opportunity to step up and help. And so that's what pulled me here. And what we're doing now is like asking and empowering more of the young people of the state of Maryland, disproportionately here in Baltimore, to go tackle big, important public problems. And we're doing it in a way that is working on that. A plank of the 3 pillars of what service can do is also connecting them to careers of meaning and impact. We're looking at some, it's not fully done yet, but we've got a report coming on the impact we're having on their earning potential when they leave our program. It's fantastic. So we're connecting them to purpose in solving problems, connecting them to economic opportunity, and also building new bonds across lines of difference in ways that I think really do matter. And the governor was on this much more than I was at the beginning. Like, to me, that third one was always like, yeah, sure, like the bonding stuff, I get it, sir, that's good. But we were just over in Chestertown with the whole Corps. And many members, including the Thread members of the governor's service program, went across the bridge. Some had never been across the bridge. And they're meeting there with young people who grew up in Chestertown. And then those kids from Chestertown are going to be in Baltimore in 2 weeks. Like, some of them have not really hung out in Baltimore much. And we're building that community and those bonds and that connection to different problems and opportunities that this young cohort wants to solve in the state. And we have two colleagues over here, Helene and Anna will tell you this, like, I'm obsessed with continuing to build this program, not for some vanity metric of like we hit this big number, but because like it's working very well for these young people. And for the state through the service that they are doing. Yeah. And if we keep doing that, like I still believe what we believed when we were students running around, that we can solve more of our biggest problems and connect people to opportunity and build a tighter bond. It's funny, Barbara and I were talking before this about sometimes when we're all trying to solve problems, we can be different dots on a polka dot shirt, not always connected. And I think the more shared experiences that this cohort of problem solvers has, the more likely that they're going to work together and make more progress than we yet have. So I'm extremely excited about what we're doing. I think it really matters. We're doing a lot of other stuff in the state. Some other day we can talk about AI and we can talk about poverty and public-private partnerships and all the work we're doing there. But on service, and I think we're talking about today, like it is working. It's extremely exciting. And some people in the room, I think Josh Michael is basically a member of our team on how many like new partners we've been able to build thanks to him. Sarah is definitely a member of our team too. Like we did a call recently. It felt like we were in our early 20s again. We were like at 7 a.m. talking about what we're gonna do together on this thing, and it's and 7 a.m. 7 p.m. like it's we are still on fire about the same things, and it's extremely exciting to be in partnership with you doing this, helping move the city and the state forward.
That's such a good answer, man. Oh man. I'm really lucky to be in the position I'm in, and it's a new position for me. So I'm following Mr. Embry, who's here this morning, and who has done extraordinary work in our community for half a century, at least. And what we do at Abell is what in many ways, what we do here at Thread, or what we do here at Baltimore Core, what we do here at the Department of Service, we try to find the people doing the work who are really building the things that work, that bring people together in service of the solution, and we resource them. And I think our most important role is we have to be an independent and accessible thinker about that and find the builders and the solutions wherever they are. So one of the best things, in my opinion, about Mr. Embry as a leader that I try to carry forward now as the CEO of the Abell Foundation is the solution may not look like the thing in your mind. There's some people out here doing some wild shit that's incredible, and it's our job to find that. Like wherever it is, we turn over every stone and we try to find the most creative and important solutions, however they may come. You know, if you haven't been over to McElderry Park and met Mr. C and the Rose Street Academy and what they're doing in terms of just getting everyone in their neighborhood to take care of that neighborhood and to help people get money in their pockets so that they might go get a job or get training that day. If you know Antoine Quarles, who uses the Alcoholics Anonymous model of kind of bringing people together in a circle very peerfully and applying that to recidivism and being the front door for all returning citizens. And every Tuesday night, he's got 50 or 60 guys who just got out of prison, and they're sitting together there in a circle and they're figuring it out together. If you got Bree Jones at Parity, if you got Nika Nandi at SOS, if you just go down the list. And I raise those people because those people are Sarah Hemminger 20 years ago and Joe Jones 20 years ago. And look at what these things can grow up into, how beautiful and powerful these institutions can become for our community. And so I believe that impact compounds, just like everything else. And when you start something that is like really beautiful and maybe small, but it's getting it right and the needle's starting to move, it's our job to find that, it's our job to resource that, it's our job to scaffold around that, and it's our job to protect that so that it might blossom into the change that we need. Because I firmly believe we are all that we need here in Baltimore City.
Yeah.
I don't think we need nobody to come in here and save us. I think we can do it ourselves.
That's right.
And I know that because I see it every freaking day. And so at Abell, our job is to find those people and to make sure that they're getting a shot, whoever they might be. And you know, Abell's a wild place. Like, we don't have applications. And I love that. I was like, why don't we have applications? They're like, people should submit whatever they feel like they can submit to tell us their story about the change they're making. And I was like, you know, that's actually really beautiful. So I'm a custodian of that. And it's a little different for me. I got my colleague Joe Menko here. Joe will tell you, like, I'm learning how to do this job. It's a little bumpy because I'm a builder, man. Like, I'm used to being one of those people building. Now it's my job to be a champion for the builders. And so I gotta like make sure I don't like start mucking about, you know, building shit for people and be like, we gotta do this, we gotta do that. So, you know, there's growth that needs to happen, that is happening. And I've got patient, generous colleagues who are helping me do that. But that's our job. We have to defend the new, we have to defend our communities, we have to defend the solutions and the creative problem solvers wherever they are, and be a lighthouse for them so that people can continue doing the things that are transforming our communities. And I'll tell you, we're actually making progress. Like, Troy knows this. Like, we're making progress. Like, this city is not the same city it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago. Like, it's happening and we can feel it. And there's a positivity and a momentum. And so I believe we're gonna get there. I believe we're gonna get there. I believe this is gonna be the best place in the world for working people and families to live the lives of their dreams.
Yeah.
And we need that now more than ever. Because this country is a wild place and it is a hard time. And there's a lot of people who believe the American dream is not possible, who believe that this country is not for them. And I think we're the counterfactual to that. It's not perfect. We've got a long way to go. We're by no means at the promised land, but we're a hell of a lot further than we were. And I think we've defied all the skeptics who for years just said, this is just what it's gonna be and what it's always gonna be.
Right.
And so Abell's an important catalyst in that because we get behind the people making that true every day.
I think one of the really critical things to connect up is that there is a relationship between individuals who are connected to their purpose, and not just upward economic mobility for those individuals, but actual economic vitality for a city. They're interrelated. And so when you think about, we have jobs in this city, but how are we pairing our workforce and making sure that they're ready to plug into those jobs? And I think that's one of the things that Service Year has done played just an exceptional role of not just connecting people to service and to their purpose, but actually meeting the needs of local employers who are looking to connect to a trained workforce, but it's where is the training, and then how do you provide additional support to people so that when they're hired, that they can stay in those roles. And we have, one of the young people who went through Service Year has just had one of many examples of a transformative experience, but it's not only that she was able to, at UMMC, get trained in phlebotomy, but she was able to have kind of wraparound support, both in terms of connection with other Service Year members and feeling this sense of like, wow, the world is open to me and available to me, but also support for like her 2 young children so that she can complete the training program. And now she's been offered a full-time permanent position, right? And so thinking about how all of these things connect up, where purpose is related to the economic success of the city. And the more that we can start with each individual, as you're saying, connecting to their purpose, then we can collectively have a really strong ecosystem with which that creates a virtuous cycle, right? And I think that's what you all are doing in your current roles, and it's just really, I think we're all very grateful that your individual purpose is very much been central to Baltimore being able to live out our shared purpose. That's been a huge thing. I want to give just a few minutes for questions from the audience. If we have a few more minutes, if we want to open it up to additional questions.
I'll ask a question. You know that.
Hi, nice to meet you. My name's Anand. I clap for the vulnerable masculinity that you were. Given that the 3 of you are very prolific social entrepreneurs here in Baltimore, and a lot of us credit y'all for building out the pool of like expertise and capital and just like social capacity for building social enterprises, right? And as there is several waves of social entrepreneurs that have come after y'all now, what do you all wish more people in Baltimore, which is a very relational city, right? What do y'all wish more of the builders who are relationally building, what do you wish we understood? What do you wish more of us understood?
It's a really good question. I want to connect that question to what Sarah just said. I think one of the secret sauces of our community is we're a city that's big enough that the problems really matter, like there's actual stakes, but we're small enough that we can make a difference and move the needle. And so I do firmly believe Baltimore is a unit of change, if you will, to use kind of language out of the business. And therefore, every single person here can play a role. So to get to your question, then, you have to ask yourself, what is that demand of each of us? And I think one of the things that we all need to be better about, that I think we have gotten better about, and Vernay has led the charge on this, Cricket has led the charge on this, is we're a big, diverse community. And we've got a real shot at making this thing work. But we gotta give each other some grace. We've gotta love each other. We've gotta lean into where it's really uncomfortable. And 15 years ago when I got going, the silos were very hard. And there was like uptown and downtown, and there was corporate, and there was grassroots, and there was city center and the neighborhoods, and they don't talk to each other. It is church and state. And I was one of those rare people. I was in all the rooms, and I heard the way that we talked about each other. And it wasn't good, and it wasn't nice, and it wasn't kind, and it didn't give people the space to grow and change. I think that has changed a lot, and I think we are better for it. Because it's going to take all of us, and there's no one community or demographic that has a monopoly on changing the city. It literally is a collective project that we are all beholden to. If black people could have solved racism without white people, guess what? We would have done it. We would have done it. We would have knocked that shit out a long time ago. It'd been done. If women could solve sexism without men, guess what? Y'all would have done it. You see my point. And so the people that are different from you, that might have something you need but you can't get to, they're not bad people. And maybe they just don't understand yet. Or maybe they're in a different place in their journey. Or maybe they're actually trying to help, and maybe you just don't fit into the frame, and that's also okay. And the people who are helping, who maybe can't connect to some of the builders and dynamic people in the community, and I hear it like, oh, they're not maybe as organized, or they don't have this, or they don't have that. They're also on a journey. I used to be one of those people. God, I used to go over to Cricket and Brad's house and be like, hey, how do I do a P&L? They'd be like, all right, son, come here. Let's get the pencils out. Let's do P&Ls. And guess what? I can do a mean P&L now. Very good at it. Wasn't always very good at it. I'm good at it now because people took the time to teach me, and they love me enough to help me get there. And so we have got to be more graceful as a community. I think we've made a lot of progress, but to me, that is one of the most important facilitations that we need here. And I think Thread is uniquely good at building and scaling that culture. And I just want to shout out Sarah, because I think she was on this from day one, and we are so much better for it.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is David Harris. I'm the Governor Park Community Association president. I was just, and I know Fagan, he'll be me brother. I just want to ask a question about how do you get comfortable with being uncomfortable in spaces of community which doesn't get looked at a lot. How do you get comfortable?
Confidence is very
Active.
It's a muscle.
It's a muscle.
Absolutely, you have that.
First, I'm going to just acknowledge, I'm going to walk out in a couple minutes because, well, Fagan is my brother and this is family. My other sibling, my little sister, has me doing something at 10 o'clock that I have to go do, so I'm sorry that I'm going to leave a little before you all have, I'm sure, a perfect group dismount that I will be sad to miss out on. I'll answer that, and it relates to something that I encourage many young people to do. I don't think it's the only way to do it, but it's like I have a certain worldview on entering communities that are different. Obviously, that's different from others in the room. For me, political campaigning was a transformative experience, and I urge lots of young people to do it. It doesn't have to be political campaigning. For Fagan, it was newspapers. But for me, it was the first time I had to go knock on doors, and in all different communities. Like 2 weeks in trailer parks in northern New Mexico was a life-changing experience for me. And a bunch of time in Cincinnati, and a bunch of time in, like going to different states, going to different communities, going to different diverse neighborhoods, and having to knock on doors, get chased by pit bulls in that trailer park, get yelled at, get being with my Panamanian buddy who experienced racism from all sorts of different communities as we were knocking on those doors together. Experience, like, that for me was transformative because at the end of the day, I was just fine. And getting yelled at, told you're stupid, told you're an idiot, sworn at, all that, wasn't that big of a deal. And for me, that was really helpful and made it easier to enter in these difficult conversations. Arguably, as my former boss could tell you, I'm a little too comfortable sometimes with a difficult conversation and can piss off a powerful person by saying what I think. That can be a problem, but I think being forced at a young age to have really hard conversations helps build that muscle in meaningful ways, and you don't want to build it too strong. You want to build some other muscles to counterbalance it, but I don't know. That's just one take on it. I'm sorry to go spend time with my birth sister now, but I appreciate you all very, very much. Thank you for having me.
So, before we transition a bit, I want to kind of connect both of these two questions. I know we're out of time in terms of questions from the group. I think the thing that connects them both is that we have to reframe success, what we define as success, and then we have to practice that. So going back to like the neuroscience of how we all behave as humans, what our brains care about is not what actually occurred. It cares about what actually occurred compared to what we expected. So the very simple example of this is in the Olympics. The medalist who is typically the most upset and disappointed is who? The silver. And it's because they often were in contention for the gold. So what they were expecting was this or this, and they got something less. Who's the happiest of all the three medalists? Bronze. The bronze, because typically they aren't in contention, or they don't think they're in contention for medals, so it's actually better than what they expected, right? And so part of it is managing our own expectations of what success is in the day-to-day. So going into a conversation, success might just be staying in the conversation and pushing through the discomfort so that you can get in the reps. And redefining success is something that's not each of us as individuals, it's not the organization or organizations we're a part of, but success is our community, it's our city. And so I'll just give a quick personal story to then transition us into, we're gonna give you the opportunity to focus on your own purpose for a little bit. One of the things that we have in common is that we both ran high school track.
I know, they're shocked looking at me. They're like, shot put. I ran, man. I was hustled.
So Fagan was a talented athlete, and I was not. So I ran distance, mile and 2 mile. And in my freshman year, we went to the city championships. And the way it worked where I grew up was that if you had won the city championships the year before, you had automatic entry into every event. So even though I had not qualified individually to run the mile and 2 mile in the citywide championships, I was permitted to run because my team had won the prior year. So I get out there, and at the time I just started dating Ryan. He was a senior, I was a freshman. This was a large focus of my life, so I invited him to come. I'm excited. I'm running in the city championship. I'm doing the 2 mile, and I'm running around the track, and all of a sudden I notice somebody pass me. And I'm like, oh shit, that's embarrassing. Then somebody else passes me. I'm getting lapped. And then all of a sudden I look up and I realize there's no one else running, that I am the only person still running the 2 mile. So I'm embarrassed. I get off the field and I go to talk to my coach. And I said, I'm so embarrassed, like I was out there by myself for I don't even know how many minutes running. Everybody else had finished, like clearly I did not belong in this race. I'm not fast enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not qualified. And she said, oh, you served your purpose. I said, well, what was my purpose? She said, well, your purpose was to give, and she referenced the star athlete on our team who was doing 5 events. She said, your purpose was to give her a break. Wow. So she intentionally put me out there so that I could be slow, so that our star athlete could rest. And so I think part of it is it's a reframe that, yeah, I might have been the worst in terms of time. I might have felt self-conscious. I might have felt embarrassed. But I served a very important purpose in my team winning the city championship for the second year in a row. And so I think like to get where we're going, it's not that we need to be good at succeeding, we need to be good at failing. It's actually having the resilience. And I think that is what we've learned in 23 years of doing this work. Do you know who's the most resilient? It's our young people. Because they have found their way to and through in the midst of unimaginable barriers, and yet they have been able to pick themselves up, keep going, push through it, right? And so that is our model for like how we get there, is our young people in our community in Baltimore, they are the ones who have demonstrated the resilience to like push through the really hard things, and we just need to be tougher.